Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott McKenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
All right, once again, welcome to Industrial Talk. Thank you very much for joining and your continued support of a platform that celebrates industry professionals all around the world. You are bold, you are brave, you dare greatly. You innovate, you collaborate, you solve problems, and that's why you are changing the world. As you can tell by the buzz in the background, we are at DistribuTech here in Orlando, Florida. A great venue. A wonderful opportunity to meet incredible individuals that solve problems, that understand the dynamic world of utilities. It is happening, and here is the place that you need to put this on your calendar, just bottom line. All right, speaking of problem solvers, we have two. Imply is the company. The two individuals, Darin and Josh, are in the house. We're going to be talking about real-time analytics and why that is important. So let's get cracking. Yeah, especially now in the world of utilities.
Absolutely.
You better have real-time stuff.
It's all about real-time.
You know, when things start to fail, and they always do, they tend to cascade. And if you don't get in front of that cascade, it's going to crush you. And that's why real-time matters. It doesn't help me to know, oh, here's a report that says 10 minutes ago I was about to have a big outage.
No, and I don't like it as a consumer of power, a proud consumer of power. Let's put it that way.
It's very hard to podcast without power. That is true.
It's very hard to do a lot of things without power.
Yes.
Podcast being the sort of at the bottom. But it's so true. All right, before we get into that conversation, I'd like to start with you, Darin. For the listeners out there, give us a little 411 on who you are.
Sure. So I'm Darin Briskman. I lead business development at Imply. We'll talk more about Imply, I'm sure, a bit later, but we're the company, the database for when real-time matters. We create and sell high-speed real-time analytics databases.
But what about you? What about your street cred? Where did you come from?
I have a weird background. So I started my career at NASA in Texas. So
No wonder you don't say that, because I'll get all distracted by NASA.
NASA was great. I will say, for those who know your way around Galveston, Houston, Clear Lake is the most misnamed geographic feature in the United States.
It's true.
But people there were great. Got to work on back then shuttle and station, a whole bunch of interesting things. And then ended up through a process I don't understand. I started there doing physics and ended up as running IT. And ever since then, I've been doing stuff with data and databases.
There you go, man.
So I had a long streak at IBM, founded my own startup, sold it, spent time at Couchbase, Amazon Web Services, Snowflake. A couple of years ago, I came over to Imply because I was so excited about real-time, what this company was doing.
I love it. Josh, background.
Yeah, 25 plus years of customer-facing sales background. Mostly in the data integration space, real-time data integration, workflow optimization, and spent time with companies like TIBCO and then Salesforce, and now with Imply, right? So it's all real-time, right? That's what matters. That's where I see the future going, streaming data, running analytics on real-time events. So really kind of the tip of the arrow in front of customers, having conversations every day.
Like it. All right, Darin. Talk about why real-time data analytics is important in the world of utilities.
It's pretty simple.
It's real-time data is important with a lot of things.
Absolutely. But when we talk, industrial uses and that whole intersection of OT and IT, it really gets down to, look, everybody needs analytics. We've all been doing analytics for ages. The real definition is when I need to know something in under a second. So there's a lot of stuff in analytics that's very important to running a utility or transmission or distribution or metering or whatever. If I'm doing a metering and doing somebody's bill, I don't need to know that within a second. Right? That's something that's something I can figure it out in an hour or figure it out in a day. Fine. But real time is things I need to know to actually make my operation run effectively And when decisions need to be made, often in timescales and humans can't make those decisions. So I need to understand what's happening and do something about it in less than a second, often much less than a second. And we see that all the time across transmission, distribution, other pieces, where you need to adjust loads, adjust flow, change your grid planning, do things, react to a lightning strike, react to that idiot truck driver who just rammed his truck into your substation. All those things that happen, if you can't respond to them in real time, you get a cascading failure. That's what we all want to avoid.
So, Josh, where do we even begin? Is there a sort of a prioritization on, we want to see everything in real time. That's great. I guess it's possible. But aren't we already doing something similar? Or take us through sort of a use case.
Yeah, that's a great example. I mean, that's a great question. I think a lot of the big companies, right, a lot of the utilities have traditionally been technology laggards, right? I mean, a lot of the back-end systems they've had these systems in place for 20, 30 plus years, right? So
for those of you listening, Scott is using a technique called sarcasm.
Yes, because nimble is not the word I would use.
Right. Yeah. So, 20 years ago, the world was not real time, right? I mean, cell phones, early 90s, right? You can imagine, and the advancements in AI and ML just in the past 5+ years. So the world is definitely trending away from, hey, it's okay to run a report out of a database and it come back in 10 minutes, right? And the world operated that way, right? But in today's world, it's all about sub-second response times at scale. And that's where the utilities and just a lot of the other pure IoT companies are headed. And so they need to understand the information in the moment. We've seen some clear examples just out of Texas. I say it's my co-home state, where they had a pretty bad event, right?
But they want to be called ERCOT. They want to be an island. They want to be their own little power island. Yeah, and look, there are weather events, right? And we're seeing more and more of that happen in the world. And so it's just an absolute that, running systems that are 20 years old, you have to modernize that. You have to start at the data layer. You have to be able to expose that data and get that data into something that you can make sense of. And so I would say a good example is we have one of my large, so I said I'm customer facing, and I have a set of large enterprise global accounts, and one of them happens to be here at the show, Honeywell. They've got a Honeywell Connected Enterprise division that is becoming a modern software platform company, right? They're taking a very industrial-based company and they're modernizing it as a software platform. They've created something called the Forge Plus platform. And so they're showcasing their utility usage and their metrics and their platform around utility observability and anomaly detection. Say that really fast without a southern accent. That's your responsibility.
That I have. So they're showcasing that, and as part of that, they embed our company and our real-time analytics database, Druid, Apache Druid, to showcase to their customers who are running utilities and anomaly detection, but they want to be able to make decisions in sub-seconds, right? They want to be able to run reports and queries against millions or even billions of events that come off these sensors in real time, and they want to make sense of it, not 5 minutes from now. They want to make real-time decisions in the moment. And so that can be from, preventative maintenance, or it can be from, hey, we have an anomaly that is way out of scope that we need to take an immediate action on, or reroute flow to a different station, or you name it. But it's all about real time. It's all about right now. Dashboards have their place. It's just not necessarily in this use case.
Darin, it's one thing to be able to collect the data. Just is. Okay, I can grab the data, grab the tsunami of data. It's coming in, but it's how do I make sense of that data? Or we start talking about, you mentioned Druid, the product, Apache Druid, if I put it down right. How do you manage that tsunami of data and make it relevant, make it actionable, make it tactical?
So Scott, you're hitting really on what the whole problem here is.
Yeah.
So, and one of the things that makes the electric world a little unique, a couple of things I actually point out. One is this isn't like some e-commerce company in Silicon Valley where if everything goes down, somebody gets their T-shirt an hour late. right?
Yeah.
If we mess up in this industry, people die.
Yeah.
So we can't be as nimble, perhaps, as we would like to be sometimes, because we have to mitigate the risk to make sure that the power's on and that it's there. Within that, that also means that we have systems of a wide range of ages. There's a lot of mainframes still running out there.
Can you believe that?
Yes, I can, because you know what? Mainframes are not fashionable, but they work.
Yeah.
And they cost too much, but they work. And eventually they get replaced. But then we also have all of these, smart meters, and we have some SCADA systems that go back to the 80s and 90s, and then we have smart meters or new SCADA that's brand new. We got to get all this stuff to work together. Because the real issue when we talk about, the large amounts of data, you're talking about volume, and volume's a big deal. But you also have the problem of variety. You have a lot of different types of data that all have to be pulled together to make sense of things. And then, of course, you have velocity. You have data that's really interesting right now. An hour from now, who cares? It's out of time. So I've got to be able to use that correctly. So when we put together, this velocity and variety and volume, that's what really makes it the interesting and the big problem. So how do you actually pull that together? Well, one is you need a database, right? That's where the data goes to be seen and pulled together. And you need to have a database that can handle both the streaming data that's coming in from those latest devices, right? So for those who are not deep into this, a device will generate what's called a data stream, which is essentially just a bunch of events, right? So measuring temperature, measuring status, measuring flow, whatever, and then sending that information once a second or 10 times a second or whatever to someplace coming in. So I've got all the streaming data. Then I also have to be able to mix that with more traditional data, the stuff that comes out of the mainframe once an hour or once a day, and then be able to make these make sense. So we mentioned Apache Druid. So this is open source software. It's public, it's free, it's available to everybody.
It's open source.
Yeah, so Apache Foundation is behind many of the biggest open source projects that are out there. There's two big foundations, the Linux Foundation and the Apache Foundation.
Yeah.
The Apache Foundation tends to be more about data, Linux Foundation is more about the operating system.
Yeah.
They overlap and everyone cooperates. The people who created Apache Druid then later founded our company, Imply, so that we could provide commercial support, we could provide database as a service, we can provide the things that you can't get out of the pure open source. So there are thousands of organizations running open source Apache Druid. We're happy for them to do it. There's a subset of that choose to pay us to get the commercial support, the security, and the as a service options.
But still, we're at a point where I still get the data, I still can collect the data.
Right.
How do I make sense of the data? What if I'm looking at real time, less than a second? I want tactical insights. Are we talking about sort of that an algorithm of some sort? Do you define that? Help us understand that.
So generally, there's three things that you would be doing with this once I've got the data in that consumable place of the data, the Highspeed database. So one is dashboards, right? And real-time dashboards. The dashboards that are telling you what's happening
Green
right
good,
now.
yellow watch, red bad.
Yeah. And pictures of your grid or other pieces and all that showing of what's going on. But that also allow you to drill in. Okay, this is yellow. Why? Double click on that.
Right, exactly.
Zoom in there. Very rapidly. A little bit technical. These are what are called aggregates and roll-ups. So I'm pulling together a lot of data, but I still need to get down to the granular, right? Okay, where's this problem? Why is this yellow? Dive in until you find, aha, that's where that problem is. Let's fix that. The second thing that comes up here are analytics applications. So this is when people write applications, right? Develop code. Some of these are packaged services, which many people here at DistribuTech are selling.
They are.
And some of this is this is why you have developers, people who write the code. They're usually pretty simple applications, because the tough part really is the data management, but still how you present that and do it. And that leads to the third use, which is another sort of that application, which is really called real-time decisioning, which are the things where you take the human out of the loop, usually because humans just aren't fast enough.
Yeah.
Right? And, to pick a different industrial area, one of our great customers is Halliburton, who are using these technologies for wellhead management. Right? Well, if there's something wrong with the drill, you've got less than a second to figure that out and either turn that drill off or change the lubricant or do something before you have either a fire or an explosion. I can't wait for a human to look at that and figure that out. Humans just aren't fast enough.
Yeah.
So this is where you have real-time decisioning, where the humans create the rules. Let's say if these rules are violated, do something now. Don't wait. And so these are the ways that people actually use this. So that first step is getting the data in a place you can do something with it. But that's usually teamed with your plan to what do you do with the data.
In this world of, and we've had a number of conversations specifically around efficiency, and to gain or to achieve some of the the requirements that are being placed on utilities, there has to be this commitment to greater efficiency. And that's, to me, is a data conversation.
Yeah.
It's a speed. There's a rapidness behind that.
The one really base to that is being able to monitor and work with your infrastructure and know where failure is going to happen before they do. Because it is 10 to 20 times cheaper to fix it before it breaks.
Yeah.
Right? Because then you're doing it during the day, it's scheduled, your crews are out there getting the work done. It's not 2 a.m. where something just failed during a storm. And that's across everything. That's generation, that's transmission, that's meters, that's the whole end-to-end world. And again, that's true in a whole bunch of other industries as well, is that predictive maintenance. So this is when the world of machine learning comes in. So not only show what's there, but being able to do algorithms that say this is what's likely to fail in the next week. This is what's likely to fail in the next month. So you can get in front of the problems before they happen. And then pure operational is also, in dealing with electricity, except for that very last leg, there's usually a whole bunch of options for how I route things through my grid. And what's the best option right now might be different 60 seconds from now.
Yeah.
Probably will be different an hour from now because of different load levels and different usage patterns, industrial versus residential and everything else. So being able to monitor those things and make them happen automatically is another way to pretty radically improve efficiency.
Yeah.
And this is where IT can really help OT by being able to do these kind of analytics and make them work in a way that is automated. And again, we see this model. We see it it's getting into utilities now. To name someplace else that has kind of the same problem is think of someone like Netflix or Disney Plus, which have many routes to route that copy of Frozen Plus to your TV screen.
Right.
And they're constantly looking at that boat to make sure it's performant so that you don't get a bad viewing experience. But also, within performance, what's the cheapest way to get it to you? So that they can minimize their costs and have the resources they need to operate a business. And this is the kind of world that you don't normally think of Netflix next to electrical utility, but while the use cases are different, the actual algorithms, the technologies are very similar.
Wow, that's interesting. All I care about is I don't want to see a little circle thing just trying to think through it. That's about the extent of my knowledge that exists there, a little circle thing.
To use a highly technical term for that, that's the spinning wheel of death.
There it is.
Which, nobody wants to see.
Nobody wants to see that. Josh, let me ask you a question. With all of this going on, where do you see Imply going? What's the latest? Put your future hat on.
Great question. No, look, we talked about open source earlier. Open source is such a great breeding ground and gathering of people like minds that really care about technology and growing technology, but want it to be available, to the masses. Right? And so, I'm very familiar and have a lot of experience in that open source world, and so I believe in it wholeheartedly. I think what Imply has done, and with our 4 founders of the original Apache Druid open source database, is they've just recognized that as more people have access to the power of open source technology, that they can start to do some pretty cool things with it, and it grows really fast. And you get into real enterprise revenue-bearing use cases pretty quickly because it's so easy to use, and you can find yourself a little bit out over your skis if you don't have the support of a company like Imply, and there's others that create these really efficient managed services around these open source technologies. So, it's only going to grow. Open source is going to grow, but scaling and these use cases that are revenue impacting are happening in sub-second, and we're delivering these use cases much faster now, so it's going to grow really quickly.
You want to know a little tidbit of information? I interviewed the guy that came up with the term use case, just FYI.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm that important.
Nice.
And it was funny because he just said, yeah, I was just trying to figure out a word that just says, hey, we're going to be, that's a use case.
I love it.
That was all it was. Nothing beyond that.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, how do they get a hold of you, Josh?
LinkedIn, Josh Bartliff on LinkedIn is the fastest way. Josh.Bartliff at Imply IO is my email address.
Yeah, excellent. Darin.
Darin.Briskman at Imply.io, or just come visit Imply.io and you'll find a lot of good information on this.
All right, listeners, we're going to have all the contact information for these two gents. Now, Darin, are you out on LinkedIn?
Of course.
Okay, there it is. We'll have their LinkedIn. We'll have their stat card out there. Most definitely. All right, we're broadcasting from DistribuTech here in Orlando, Florida. It is, once again, as you can tell by Darin and Josh, problem solvers everywhere. You're stubbing your toes on them. Anyway, we're going to have another great conversation shortly coming from us. Stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
All right, that's Darin and Josh. Imply is the company. DistribuTech was the event. And if there is ever a need for what we call high-speed real-time data analytics, it's in the utility space. I love what they're doing. A lot of knowledge there. It's just getting better and better all the time. As you can tell by all of the conversations we are having at DistribuTech and other events, there's a lot of innovation and a lot of solutions that are happening out there and a lot of individuals that would love to be able to collaborate. Big time. You got to reach out. Find their stat card out on Industrial Talk and make it a point. It's on your to-do list to make it a point to connect with these two gents. All right. Industrial Talk is here for you. You have a podcast, you want to be able to get more attention, put it out on Industrial Talk. I'm here for you. Go out to industrialtalk.com. It is a platform that is dedicated to education, collaboration, as well as innovation. It's all there. Be a part of the ecosystem. Be bold, be brave, dare greatly. Hang out. We're going to have another great conversation shortly.